Hospitals in Cuba have started running low on beds, and doctors are grappling with shortages of medicine, oxygen, and other critical supplies. Well, now some doctors are taking an unprecedented step, using social media to criticize the government's handling of the pandemic. Patrick Ottman reports from Havana.
During the first months of the pandemic, Cuban healthcare workers received applause every night. Cuba's government calls the doctors and nurses heroes in white coats and sends them to work in countries around the world to earn the hard currency that the communist-run island desperately needs. But as Cuba's socialist healthcare system faces shortages of medicine and hospitals are overwhelmed by COVID, tensions have emerged between the government and the doctors and nurses they usually praise. During a visit to a province hard hit by COVID in August, Cuba's prime minister said healthcare workers there had committed errors and were undisciplined. There are complaints about lack of medicine, he said, but they are less than the complaints of mistreatment, of neglect, or that doctors don't make visits. That's incredible. The backlash across the island from some Cuban healthcare workers was swift and unprecedented. We are demanding the minimum conditions to offer decent care to our patients and healthcare workers, this doctor said. More than 36 doctors and nurses have posted videos to social media saying the government's pandemic response is failing. We want to keep working. We want to keep saving lives, says this doctor. We are not responsible for the sanitary collapse in our country. The Cuban government says the doctors are being used for, quote, new enemy campaigns, but has recognized the healthcare system is at its limits. For much of the pandemic, Cuba seemed to have the spread of the coronavirus under control. But then in late 2020, the island reopened borders without first requiring travelers to have a PCR test before arrival. Now with the Delta variant, the number of cases and deaths are skyrocketing. Cuba turned down offers from other countries to send vaccines, instead developing their own. We trust 100% in our vaccine candidates, she says. The numbers of cases that we have today, in a few months, our vaccine candidates will show that they are effective and the situation will improve. So far, more than 30% of the island is completely vaccinated, according to the health ministry. The government predicts they will vaccinate every Cuban by the end of the year. Despite the massive effort, cases and deaths remain at an all-time high. For the rebellious Cuban healthcare workers who have spoken out against their government's handling of the pandemic, even if the vaccines succeed, it is already too late. Patrick Ottman, CNN Havana.